tomorrow morning. She said, no problem. I'll tell you what to say. I said, fabulous. She's turning into a public speaker. This is great. Tell me. I'd really like to hear. So she says, tell them, thank you for coming, she says. Tell them this meeting is all about Arrowsmith. And I think that more schools should have Arrowsmith so that other kids can get the help, same way I did. We have here with us today a number of principals, 2 principals that are implementing the program in their schools in New York, who are gracious enough to take time out and come and share with you some of the experiences and observations and changes that they've seen in their students over the last 2 years. Rabbi Eliyahu Teitz, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He's the Associate Dean of the Jewish Educational Center, otherwise known as the JEC in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I had the pleasure of meeting him a number of years ago. Very, very dedicated, committed principal who is very involved and cares about each individual child. He was the first school, the first New Jersey Jewish school to implement the program. And I thank him dearly for coming all the way from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Rabbi Teitz is going to say a few words.
Arrowsmith is a fascinating program that when we joined in, we really didn't know where it was going to lead us. The way the program works, it identifies many different areas of brain function, and it looks for strengths in certain areas and weaknesses in other areas. And everybody has that. No one is perfectly brilliant in every aspect of learning. But what we have is we compensate. We learn how to compensate for our weaknesses. The absent-minded person goes and writes lists, and hopefully remembers where he puts the lists. But the point is we find ways to compensate. What happens though if you have students or people, even adults, who have so many areas of weakness that no matter how many compensations you try to teach them, it's still not working. Another system has to develop. And that's what Arrowsmith does. They don't try to compensate, they try to retrain. To retrain the brain to teach it to do things that it can't do well. But if there are so many different areas, you can only address 4 or 5 of them in a given year. So you have to be patient with your students and see that there might be incremental, slow incremental steps. And then in the second year, after they, let's say, address the 5 in the first year, the second year they're addressing, let's say, 3 others, all of a sudden the pieces start coming together, and that's when you see the growth. So what I counsel is patience. The system works, be patient. One thing I will say, and this is something that was counterintuitive to everything that we thought was going to happen. In speaking with my teachers, and they've had these children in their classes for years, some of them, you know this through the system, the fear was that the Arrowsmith program, during the time that they're there, it's extremely intensive work. You'll see some of the skills that they have to do. They have to trace really intricate designs. And the fear was, take a kid like that, and then all of a sudden throw him into a regular classroom after focusing intently for 40, 45 minutes, what's the child going to be like? We thought it's going to be a disaster, they're going to have downtime, whatever, to exactly the opposite. On the days that the kids came from the Arrowsmith, they were much more focused in the regular classroom than they were on the days that they didn't have it. That's just one little point that just made us open our eyes and say, you know what, maybe there's a lot more to this program than we really realized.
Our next speaker, Rabbi Ari Mintz, who's the principal of Yeshiva Gedola Beis Yisrael here in Flatbush. One of his students went to Tiferes Yisrael for the program for 1 year. He was more mild in terms of his learning problems. He had fewer areas and needed a 1 to 2 year program. And Rabbi Mintz would like to share a few words with us on the changes that he noticed in that particular student.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with a group of mechanchim and mechanchos who are not interested in just keeping the status quo, but are looking for methods of addressing issues at the core, getting down to the bottom of things, and seeing true hatzlacha. In our yeshiva, we had a boy in 11th grade. Now he's currently in 12th grade. Last year, he went part-time to the Arrowsmith. He went through 11th grade, and he came back a bacher on a totally different level. Now in 12th grade, he has such social skills that he might be from the highest level communicators. He gave public drushes in the yeshiva at different various functions that we had. He spoke phenomenally well. He wrote tremendous essays. At home, the parents are thrilled with what they see, the changes in the son.
I'd like to introduce Bracha Newman, who is our teacher for 2 years at Yeshiva Tiferes Yisrael, who is the sports teacher, who can tell you a little more about that. Thank you.
If I had the guts, I would get up on the tallest building in every city and announce to all the parents that if they have a child who's struggling in school, they should put them in an Arrowsmith program. If I had the time, I would meet with the principal in every yeshiva and every girls' school and tell them that if they want to help their students who are having a difficult time learning, they should open up an Arrowsmith program. But I don't have the time, and I guess I don't have the guts. And that's why I'm here this morning to share with you the amazing and incredible changes that I have seen in my students in the Arrowsmith program in Yeshiva Tiferes Yisrael. September 2008, I set up my classroom and I began to implement what I was taught. One by one, the boys came in and they said to me, Mrs. Newman, I understood the Gemara for the first time in my life. One by one, they came in and they said, oh, I read a 100-page book, hundreds of page books. I got a note from a parent. Her son, who wouldn't read because it was difficult for him, picked up the Yated, read an article, and was discussing it with his family. One of the boys, a 4th grade boy, would come home every Shabbos with his Parsha questions, and his father would say, okay, give me your questions. By the 3rd question, the son was screaming, you know I don't know this, you know I can't do this, why are you asking this to me? That was before he started Arrowsmith. Now the father tells me he's coming home, he's handing his father the questions, and he's saying, what do I get if I know all 20? 2 of the boys who are in my program were retested by the Board of Ed this year. Their math scores went up grade levels. And the most interesting part of all is that one of the boys did not even work on the exercise that helps math, but he worked on comprehension. He worked on problem solving. And all the different areas that he worked on came together that he was able to solve problems, do math examples. He's a 7th grade boy. He rated 9th grade in some areas, and in problem solving he rated 11th grade. So these are the results that we're seeing in our students. And so, as Annette's daughter so simply and so elegantly said, let us know that we are offering all these children who are struggling a chance to succeed in school and in life.
Rabbi Yisachar Wiener, principal of Tiferes Yisrael, became interested in the Arrowsmith program a number of years ago because he read this book, The Brain That Changes Itself, by Dr. Norman Deutsch. Dr. Norman Deutsch is a psychoanalyst who became very, very interested in the field of neuroplasticity. And what he decided to do was he took actually 4 years to write this book. He interviewed neuroplasticians across North America. He devoted 1 chapter of the book to strokes and the kind of rehabilitation we know we can do today, another to phantom pain, a third to the aging population and memory loss. And for the chapter on learning disabilities, he devoted to the Arrowsmith program and the leading experts of neuroplastic work and learning disabilities. And this intrigued Rabbi Wiener very, very much, because he knew that there were some students that his school couldn't access. I'd like to introduce Rabbi Yisachar Wiener.
Let me just simply begin by recounting my own personal affiliation with the Arrowsmith program. As Mrs. Goodman mentioned, I was intrigued by that 2nd chapter of the book entitled The Brain That Changes Itself. And that was really one manner in which I became affiliated with Arrowsmith. But, in all honesty, it was really a couple of years ago that I was contacted by parents of the yeshiva who had heard of the Arrowsmith program. And in truth, as a very suspecting person, my brain even without any neuroplasticity, has a healthy dose of negativity, especially toward any program that someone with, in my mind, has an agenda might want to advocate. But I listened carefully, as Mrs. Goodman very artfully explained the concept of the Arrowsmith program, and I must admit, I was intrigued, but I was far from convinced. Now, that was 2 years ago, and I must say that today I stand here humbled. Over the past few months, I have spoken to parents, to tutors, rebbeim, and actually the students themselves, who are perhaps the best, most accurate testimony to the effectiveness of the program. There is one student about whom his parents report that they'd be embarrassed or nervous to sit with him in even at a Shabbos table with guests over. They were afraid of what might come out of his mouth. Either he wouldn't say anything, or he'd say something completely off topic. Now, I could personally attest to this parent's concerns, knowing the student very well. At this point, he's now able to understand what is going on in a conversation, and he's therefore capable of being part of a group conversation and making his own contributions. He can actually repeat things that he hears from a Rav, or as a teenager, as a high school student, when he goes to an Onik Shabbos, together with his friends. He can actually come back and repeat things that were said, as a normal teenager would. Needless to say, the increase in his fund of knowledge and his awareness of what is what is happening around him allows him to contribute intelligently in any social setting. Now, this is just one story. There are many stories. Another parent has said that this is the first time that their child has an interest in succeeding. The first time that the child actually wants to put effort to succeed. Now, this child is in 5th grade. And I could say just recently, it just happened, very timely. They had their first Gemara test scheduled. And he wanted to take it even though he felt he wasn't prepared, 100%. And really, he's not used to a regular test schedule, because after all, he's an Arrowsmith. Arrowsmith takes about at least 3 hours a day. So he's not used to the regular testing schedule. But he wanted to take it.